Journalist and activist Rosa Clemente says she could not sit back any longer watching what took place, the devastation in Puerto Rico. So she and other journalists started PR on the Move to document the damage caused by Hurricanes Maria and Irma to ensure the people who are still in crisis are not forgotten.
I tweeted yesterday to Rosa, don't let anybody steal your dreams. There's no better time for doing what you think is right and for standing up against injustice than today. Don't leave it for tomorrow. Don't let somebody else take your turn.
On October 6, 2017, a group of 7 organizers and media Latinx folks traveled to San Juan, Puerto Rico to get the real news from the people on the ground. Unlike what the Trump administration, the media, and Ricky Rosselló have been telling us, most people on the island have yet to receive running water and electricity. More importantly, the aid that has been coming in from the United States from people has been withheld at the docks by FEMA and the US government. Meanwhile, people here are dying.
What we have now is a total catastrophe, both humanitarian and political. The aid is here. The thousands of shipping cargo containers that are there from the people in the diaspora, other parts of the world that sent out stuff to us, they're there. So people need to stop sending things. We need to pressure politically. And that's why I mentioned it's a political struggle, because they're choking us. And they're choking us, and it's very evident. And it looks like genocide.
Joining us by phone from LA is Rosa Clemente. Rosa, how you doing?
Great, and it's PR on the map. Thank you, Roland.
PR on the map?
Yes, on the map.
All right, PR on the map. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So here's the deal. You know, when Trump went to Puerto Rico, he literally praised the lack of deaths like we saw in Hurricane Katrina. Oh, just 10. When we all knew that was a lie, because bodies where people were actually, they couldn't put any bodies in funeral homes. And then people began, and when I was talking to you at the Women's March, you said that people were actually incinerating. They were burying their own dead.
Right. Well, I mean, let's just be clear. We're dealing with a white supremacist megalomaniac who doesn't care about people in the country he's supposed to represent. So why would he care about people that he probably found out the day of the hurricane were American citizens? That he said Puerto Rico is surrounded by a lot of water and it's hard to get to. So, you know, in this context of Puerto Rico, he is what he is. And the catastrophe in Puerto Rico, we're now in the 69th day. 75% of that island does not have power. The power that is on, there's consistent rolling blackouts. The water, for the most part, all over the island is contaminated. Schools have still not opened. And we're dealing now with a crisis of homelessness and a crisis of unemployment. You know, so what it's going to take for Puerto Rico to be all right is first for people in the United States not to forget the people of Puerto Rico, but also people have to realize that although about 40 to 50 people died on impact, what the deaths we're seeing now are what we call negligent deaths because of the incompetence of the United States government, but also a broken Puerto Rico government that is really a colonial administration because we are a colony of the United States. When we were there reporting, Roland, from October 6th to 14th, my take before I left on October 15th to come back to the States was that we would see this number skyrocket to over 1,000. And last week, CNN had done an investigative report where they called as many funeral homes as they could to get numbers of people that were still there or people that they know families have buried in the backyard. Or even when we went to the morgue, we were told that at a certain time every night, cadavers were being brought out and would be incinerated. And so I think when the truth gets really told and we have some hardcore investigative journalism going down, I know, unfortunately in my heart, that deaths in Puerto Rico post-Hurricane Maria will be over 1,000.
And again, the lack of attention, the lack of focus, and for this president, he would rather be tweeting about NFL players protesting than about what's actually happening there.
It's a crime against humanity what's happening in Puerto Rico. You know, I know with the previous administration, things would be better. But I also believe that the crisis in Puerto Rico did not just start with Hurricane Maria or Hurricane Irma, that for 119 years, we've been a colony and a playground for the United States to use militarily. Our island in the 50s, 1/3 of our women were sterilized while birth control was being tested. Our independence movement and leaders have been tortured, imprisoned, and assassinated, and all for figuring out or fighting for Puerto Rico to be an independent nation. You know, so now with climate catastrophe hitting island nations, Hurricane Maria was the hardest hurricane in 60 years to hit the Caribbean. I mean, it devastated the U.S. Virgin Islands, and we're also not hearing much about that. But particularly for Puerto Rico, the scale of the problem, we're talking about 3.5 million people that have been under this no power, no water, no sense of a normal kind of life since November 19th. And as well, the island was already economically devastated. And the bill that unfortunately the Democrats pushed through and was signed by President Obama called Promesa, what that bill essentially did say, we're going to pay Wall Street bondholders before we have schools. And just last year alone, 177 schools were closed down so that Wall Street could be paid a debt that, in my political opinion, we don't know the United States $1. We are owed reparations from the United States for 119 years of colonialism and land grab.
Avis?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for what you're doing, for shedding light on this, because clearly we have an irresponsible administration in the White House that would rather talk about frivolous stuff. And my question to you is that, what are your plans for sort of sounding this alarm even louder? I remember after Hurricane Katrina, many of the activists there were considering going to the UN to really do something around shining the lights on what happened there as a human rights atrocity, which I believe what's going on right now is once again a human rights atrocity. What sort of international organizations or international bodies can you see taking the American government to, like for example, World Court, around what's happening right now in Puerto Rico, if for no other reason than to embarrass this administration and shine a light on what's going on in Puerto Rico to the entire international community?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that is exactly what's going to be a process that's going to begin actually on Human Rights Day, the weekend of December 10th at the not at the United Nations, but that weekend there will be activities in New York, Chicago, and Florida, where many people who are being forced to leave are migrating to do tribunals and to really, as Malcolm X taught us, to take this to the United Nations and expose more light. Let me just say that every year at the United Nations, there's a committee on decolonization about Puerto Rico, and it's been going on for decades. The main problem is every administration has treated Puerto Ricans like stepchildren. We don't exist on the island, and we only exist in the United States for votes. And the problem really at the end of the day is what you said. This is a humanitarian crisis, but colonization and the very fact that we are the only we are a colony of the United States in 2017 should sound the alarm to people that no people should not have the right of self-determination. So that's the next step we have to take this to, because the people in Puerto Rico are doing the work. They're building their homes. They are in community like I have never seen in my lifetime. To see my family suffer, but then on the other tip, to see how local groups, particularly young people, particularly led by women, are creating brigades and kitchens and political education at those things, who are now beginning to also teach children, because I think people forget that most children are not going to school. There's no schools are not open. And in fact, the American Federation of Teachers recently tried to open some schools and were arrested on the island for trying to open schools that were that were able to be open so that the children in the community could come. And this is a crazy connection that I know your audience will appreciate. Betsy DeVos.
About 20 seconds.
So real quick, the woman who runs the Department of Education in Puerto Rico is one of Betsy DeVos's best friends. And she wants to privatize all the schools in Puerto Rico, much like they did after Hurricane Katrina.
What's your website?
PROnTheMap.com, and everybody could go to it right now and see our new short film, 15 minutes long, called Puerto Rico Rising.
All right, Rosa Clemente, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no. That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.